Welcome, first grade teachers. We are here today to go over the purposeful unit planning for mathematics for Module 1. I'm Kathy Morris. I work at Payne Elementary.
And I am Bethany Cranston, and I work at Adams Elementary. What we are going to be doing today, you will need the instructional sequence guide. You will need your math progression. Some of you have it in a binder. Some of you have just the hyperlinks online, which is fine. And then you will also need your Module 1 for Engaged New York. What we're going to look at first is our essential understandings of our instructional sequence guide. So if you look, there are 4 major essential understandings in this module. All of them fall under the operations and algebraic thinking progression. The whole module, there are 39 lessons for this module. It's a very large module. It'll take up most of your, it says it goes until November 1st, so it's going to take up most of your first semester of your year. We said that it's the operations and algebraic thinking progression. And then if you look at the rest of our, sorry, you can't see that, instructional sequence guide, we then talk about the number talks, which there are some, this module does not have very many, it actually does not have any suggestions because it's followed in the, or they hit them pretty well in the sequence, or in the lessons. And then over on this side we have all the standards and all the math practices. And then over here we have what we wrote as teacher notes. A lot of the teacher notes are just helpful information for you to know when you're planning, and for you to, I know there's some examples of if there's a page that is going to be used a lot, that you can copy that and put into a sleeve.
A protective sleeve.
Yeah, so that you can use it over and over. And then on this side, you have your student journal. So every student will have a journal, and then these are the student pages that you will be using during your problem sets. Let's see, the next part we're going to talk about the progressions. So in our progressions, there is a lot that hits with Engaged New York. So there are number bonds to help the students decompose and compose numbers. They do a lot of matching objects and labels, and if you're not familiar with the progressions, every time you read them you're going to learn something new. So we highly recommend that you go over those again. And that is also in your purposeful unit planning. The first part is to look at your instructional sequence guide, which we just did, and we looked at the essential understandings. The next part is to look at the progressions, and so we are in the operations and algebraic thinking progression. There's a lot of problem solving in this module. They also hit several of the different situation types, such as result unknown, change unknown, the put together and take apart. In Module 1, they mainly focus on numbers from 1 to 20, or sorry, from numbers 1 to 10, and then in Module 2, we go up to numbers up to 20. There is one thing that we will become familiar with, the Say 10 way, which Kathy will talk on a little bit more later, but that's also in our progressions as well in the modules. So then after you look at the progressions, which we just talked about what is the most important parts of the progressions that fit with our module, then the next part you're going to go to is the Engage New York module overview.
Okay, and for the module overview, we already talked about that the number talks are important, but we just don't happen to hit too many of those because our fluency routines are kind of a math number talk in its own way. So we do suggest that you do a lot of the fluency activities, and number talks will come in a little bit later in our other modules.
And with the fluency activities, if you do any of the sprints, just make sure that we're not timing those, because that can be really detrimental to our students and their learning.
The other piece is that Appendix A. I know you've seen this before. This is going to be really important because, like Bethany said, we start with this module thinking that most of the kids are coming in with a great understanding of adding and subtracting within 5. Now, if your kids aren't there, you'll notice that if you go back to kindergarten, then maybe that is something that you're going to want to think about doing with those kids that aren't familiar with that during your intervention time. Mm-hmm. So be aware that you need to know where they should be coming out of kindergarten although that may not be true this year because this is the first year for everybody doing the Engage New York. But do pull this out and maybe put this in your planning guide. It'll help you as you're planning your lessons. There are 10 topics in this module. It's a very big module.
Very big.
Please pay attention to the standards in each of the topics. A lot of them are repeated from the topic before, but there are new ones that come ever so often. So please be aware that this operations and algebraic thinking is what the whole module's about, and they will repeat themselves. They will do new lessons that hit those. So just be aware, especially if you need to go back to your math progressions, do that as you're planning. As an overview to the lesson, you will have in each module, the overview, it will talk about each of the topics, and it will kind of tell you what you're going to do, which standards you're doing, why that's important, what's the big point. So as you're planning, please make sure you look at the overview before you start the lessons.
And it goes into each topic, it divides it up by topic. It's not labeled, it doesn't have the actual label like topic A, and then it gives you the information. It says in the paragraph it has the topic, but it goes into every single topic and it tells you what is going to be hit in that topic.
And just for your information, if you look at the instructional sequence, it doesn't say topic A on it, so you're just going to have to be aware that the first 3 lessons of that module are topic A, and then you'll see topic B, and it's got like 8 lessons. So that's when we're talking about topics, that's how we separated them on the instructional sequence. The other thing that's real important to look at is the terminology. Please become familiar with that. We do have at the back of each of the student journals a page of vocabulary. So you will find this at the back of yours, and it's just a full page.
Back of the student journals.
Back of the student journal. So be aware that that is there for them, but for you, please take time to look at the terminology at each module. The other thing that we have are suggested tools that are going to be used during that module. Be aware that one of the things that is included is an online Reckon Rack. If you'll look at lesson 3, it says right in there how you can access that online Reckon Rack.
There's a hyperlink that you just go into the online version of your instructional sequence guide, and you click on that, and then it'll take you right to that.
Now, a lot of you have Reckon Racks already in your room, and that's great because you can always include that in your lessons. Even if the lesson doesn't say to use your own Reckon Racks, please feel free to include those. The other thing it talks about are 5 group cards. If you guys want to use dot cards, which you already have, that's fine. Remembering that Engage New York was made for those districts that didn't have a lot of manipulatives, we happen to have some manipulatives that will take the place of the paper copies they use. So feel free to use what you have manipulatively for your kids.
And even if a lesson doesn't call for a specific manipulative, think about what will work best for you and your students. Because this is not, this is what you need to do for your own students. So if it doesn't call for something, think about what you have on hand that you could use for your students.
The other thing that we've included at the back of the student journals are some 10 frames, some 20 frames. Now again, we've included those. You may have some in your room that you want to use, but they are in the back of the student journal. And as Bethany said, please pay attention to the teacher's note. We try to go through and look at the lessons and give you a hint of something that might help you. So please attend to those notes because they might help you a little bit as well.
And like she was talking about with the notes, on lesson 4, there's a note that the page 76 will be used several times. So it's not going to be just used in lesson 4, it will be used again in later lessons. And it could be in a lesson, maybe in module 2. So just keeping those on hand so that you have them and you don't have to run the copies again.
That's very important. Okay, and the fluency pieces that are in each of the lesson are very important. Please try not to skip over these. Like Bethany said, there are some sprints that in Engage New York, they expect you to time them. You do not have to time them. You can go ahead and use them. You can use them as a fluency piece. Or if you want to use it as homework, you can send it home with the kids and have them bring it back. Those things are a little easier than the homework, and we're going to talk about the homework in a little bit. The other thing that are part of the fluency are some very new concepts. Bethany told you that we have one called the Math Way, and we're going to show you an example of what that looks like so that you're not afraid of it. It just is a different way to look at counting for the kids there.
So we're going to move the camera for just a second. So Kathy's going to cover it up so we don't make you guys sick.
Okay, and then Bethany's going to show you. Let me see if I can get in close. Okay, she's going to show you. It's like piano hands, and you're going to count. You can do this under the dot camera, or you can do it under. You do it up just for the kids so they can see it. So, okay.
But this is something that your students will be expected to know how to count this way.
Okay, so let's show them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if the kids are familiar with this, then you might say, what number is this? Show me 7. Show me 3. So that the kids get used to doing it with these piano hands instead of the way we normally do.
Because normally if we were to say show us 3, they would go like this. But instead they're starting with their left hand and they're showing just the 3. And then all the rest of their fingers will be covered up.
So that's one of the new concepts. Another new concept is say the 10 way. Now this will be very strange to you, but if you look at your progressions, it's actually in there. Asian students can count this way a lot. So we're just going to count for you the 10 way in to 20. So
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10, 1, 10, 2, 10, 3, 10, 4, 10, 5, 10, 6, 10, 7, 10, 8, 10, 9, 20.
Oh, we did it. Yay.
Good job.
So there are many fluency activities. These were just 2 examples that we wanted to show you. They're important, and you're going to use them throughout a lot of modules. So I know you'll feel uncomfortable. We felt uncomfortable trying them for the first time, but the kids will love them. And so please try them and use your teachers to bounce ideas off of what worked well for them and what didn't work. So,
and there are more than just those fluency pieces, but we chose those 2 because we thought that those would be the most unfamiliar, because they were the most unfamiliar for us. And it is uncomfortable teaching like that with using your fingers that way. It is uncomfortable at first, but the more that you do it, the more that it'll become familiar, and it'll just become routine for you and your students, and they will have a deeper understanding if it's because it's going in a pattern, and it's not just, okay, well, I hold this finger up because I 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I add my 5th over on this side. So it's more of a sequence for them.
And the kids will love it when you make a mistake. They'll figure out right away.
Yes,
that is the right way.
So the next part of the purposeful unit planning, so we went through the instructional sequence guide, we went through the learning progressions, and we've looked over the module overview. So the next part is the module assessments and the formative tasks.
And almost all of your units have both a mid-module assessment and a formative task. Not all. We do have a couple of the modules that are very short, and they're not included in those. But before you start a module, so for Module 1, we're getting ready to start it, the first thing you should do is you should take the mid-module assessment, the formative task, and even the end of unit assessment, module assessment, because you want to be understanding, 1, the time that it might take the kids, the concepts that the kids need to know before they take it. It will help you see what thinking skills your kids are going to need to have.
Because when you actually sit down and take them, you can see the problems and you actually have to work through it. You can see where they might struggle, or where you know that you need to really bump that up in your teaching throughout the modules or throughout the topics, so that they are prepared for that.
And the nice thing about after you give either the mid-module assessment or the formative task, it's going to help you to figure out what you need to do for your instruction, especially your intervention time. This may be where you take a group of kids that just didn't get that concept, and you want to go back over a lesson, or you want to change a lesson to try and get that understanding for them.
Well, in this year we have 15 less instructional days, so we have to be very purposeful with our intervention time this year. There are going to be times where you're going to want to slow down in your modules, but that's can be detrimental to our students as well, because then they're not going to be you're not going to be able to get through all of the modules and all of the content that they need for first grade to help them move to second grade. So being really purposeful with your intervention time is going to be major this year.
Sure will.
All right, so then the next part of our purposeful unit guide or planning is the team discussions and the lesson sequence, which are down the last two at the bottom. With this is your time that you want to take with your team, and you want to sit down and you can take the module. This would be a great time to take the assessments. Sit down together with your team and take them and see where you think that you need to move your, let this drive your planning. Also for the homework and the exit slips, we recommend that you don't send them home unless your students are fluent with that problem. So if they're doing number bonds for ways to make 5, if they're not fluent in that, we would not recommend sending that home until maybe a couple weeks later. And so then that's just a review for them, because if their parents do not understand, it's going to be, and they're not fluent in it, it's going to be very hard for them to accomplish that homework at home.
So taking the homework and using it after you've had a few weeks practice will be more successful for both your kids, and it won't frustrate your parents, because they're not going to know what those are.
A lot of this looks different for how we went to school and what we did. And so when they might learn it, their parents are going to try to teach them a different way at home. So we want to make sure that the kids can say, oh, well, this is how we do this. And so if they have a question, that they should not have very many questions on their homework.
But the nice thing is because you guys have, you've been given all of the practice sheets, the kids have those in their journal. They do not have the exit slips, and they do not have the homework in there. So we do not suggest that you go and you just start copying homework and exit tickets. You need to become familiar with the module enough that when it's time to give homework, you'll know. Or when you want to give an exit slip, you'll know that it's time to do that.
Yes. Well, I think that is all. If you have any other questions, feel free to email Lynette or Debbie, and they can help you further. Anything else?
I think that's good. Hopefully we covered it all.
Yes, thank you.